Welcome to Hip to the Games, the podcast for you, the basketball junkie and the hip hop head. I'm your host, Desmond, and I too have had hoop dreams and enjoy the beautiful genre of hip hop and its history. Together, we will enjoy some of the greatest albums, songs, artists, players, moments, teams, and so much more, while even mixing the two on occasion, all in my hope that you remember why you love both or either of these to begin with. You'll soon understand that Hip to the Games is more than just a podcast, it's a lifestyle. And if you were looking for a platform that combines both basketball and hip hop, you've come to the right place. They play my kind of basketball. And a lot of layers to this song if you're really paying attention. Here's a huge shout out to you for being hip to the games. Today is a different episode of Hip to the Games as I have an announcement for you. As you know, I recently took a break throughout November and December, and it allowed me to do a lot of reflecting on my journey and my future as a podcast creator. Since day one, I have always been open about my journey as I never wanted to just give the highlights. I can't stand how that's been the norm in society. Not even just now, but even when I was a child, like you always heard people's highlights. You always heard people's success stories, not the actual everyday ups and downs of that journey. And since that time, I've watched this podcast grow from me knowing the exact people who listen to my show every week, looking at to now looking at the variety of listeners and viewers who for some reason enjoy or appreciate what I have to say on various topics around basketball and hip hop. And I try my best to remain in a place of gratitude for that and remember that I'm walking in answered prayers. When we ask God for increase, we tend to leave out how much we really want. So it can be easy to receive a sample size of that increase and get too wrapped up in it not being our fully desired portion. So I certainly appreciate you for being with me on this journey and supporting me, no matter if you're new to the show, been here since I was only doing audio episodes on Anchor or somewhere in between. I genuinely appreciate you. These past 5 years as the host and creator of Hip to the Games has been nothing short of special. I look at this journey and I just keep hearing Andre 3000's words from Outkast Rock and Roll Hall of Fame speech. Great things start in small rooms. And I like to think that I'm one of many examples of that, or at least on my way of being an example of that. I certainly hope that one day I can be an example of that and just tell people, like, anybody who's chasing a dream, like, this is what it's really like. You're not alone. I know what the down days look like. I know what it's like to grind and feel hopeless at the same time, to feel hopeful and hopeless at the same time, all of that. So that said, I have reached a point where it's time to pivot. And don't worry. Hip to the Games isn't going anywhere. But I am actually going to be switching my attention to a brand new podcast. The show will still be up. Hip to the Games will still be up. The Substack will still be alive. All those things, and I will always remain an advocate for hip hop and the human beings that create the art we enjoy. But I've finally realized that, as my social media bio has poetically stated, basketball is my wife and hip hop really is my mistress. When I started the show in 2021, mentally I was in a place where I believed both basketball media and hip hop media needed more positive voices. Hip hop/rap was coming out of its mumble rap phase, so naturally I had a lot of thoughts about how I wanted to help shift the conversation for the next generation. And, likewise in the basketball space, I wanted to create a lane that reminded people that we can still critique players and treat them with respect. We can disagree with each other and still treat each other with human decency. And we can praise players of a variety of skill levels, regardless of whether or not it's the popular thing to say. And from that point on, I was determined to establish an ebb and flow where my passion for each would mix. And from a big picture perspective, quite honestly, establish myself as a respected voice in each space. And it's funny, I talk so much about my hoop dreams, what it was like on court for me. But like most kids, I had a myriad of dream careers in my head. And you may not know that from the time I was like 7 to maybe 14, 15 years old, I wanted to be an analyst on NBA TV. And I used to hate this quick story. I used to hate when I would go to the doctor's office as a kid. And by the way, my doctor took great care of me and my brother. But, we would talk about those things, right? And, they like to do that thing when before you get a vaccine, they try to distract you and ask you about your life and everything. And I would tell her, like, yeah, I want to be a sports analyst, or, I want to be an NBA analyst specifically. And she would always say, "Oh, well, that's so competitive." And I'm sitting there like, "You're a doctor. You found a way to establish a career in a competitive and cutthroat field. Why can't I? Why is the first thing that comes out of your mouth, oh, it's so competitive?" When you're in one of the most competitive, saturated industries in the world. So I say that to say, no matter where I was in life, I was just always drawn to that career path. And I've said it before, my TV stayed on ESPN and NBA TV. That's all me and Devon would watch as kids. I remember waking up, in the good old ESPN, right? I remember waking up and the sports reporters were on at 9:30 before Sports Center airs. Then you got First Take being from like what, noon to 1 or something like that. You watch Outside the Lines with Bob Lee at 2:30. Jim Rome comes on at 3:30. Around the Horn at 4. PTI at 4:30, if I'm not mistaken. Like that was the environment back then, man. And turning on NBA TV and just being obsessed with NBA Game Time and just the overall presentation and studio production. Like, it really opened my eyes to say, like, dang, like, you can really talk about basketball every day for a living. And I was just enamored at how professional and articulate many of the men and women were. And I just always wanted to emulate that. And again, even on the hip hop side, I always felt like hip hop media featured a lot of older men and older women, and was in desperate need of younger voices that enforced the foundational principles of hip hop like they did, while being closer in proximity to what the current state of the culture looks and feels like. That was one of the things that really motivated me in the beginning. Like, man, like the older generation has so little faith, and they use the term Gen Z almost like this derogatory term, in so to speak, right? Like, it's just the generation that just makes, they don't know nothing, they don't know their history, they don't know. And quite frankly, I do agree with some of that, unfortunately. But like, at the same time, there's some of us who are older Gen Zs, but didn't quite make millennials. And then we're old enough to where we don't exactly resonate with the prototypical Gen Z. So it's that Gen Zillennial gap, right? Where like we kind of feel like we're in our own generation, from like, if you're born from like 97 to 2002, right? So like I was so hungry to just show people like, nah, like there are young voices in this space that care how you care, right? You gotta open your eyes a little bit more. So I say that to say I tried my absolute best to balance both of those endeavors, and I'm proud of the way that I managed to do so. At the same time, I've more recently noticed how much of my brain gravitates towards basketball. We just came off a fantastic year in hip hop, and to be honest with you, I just haven't represented that in the way that I feel like I should have. Sure, that's probably me being my worst critic. I know you're probably like, "Oh, Des, you did just fine. You did fine. Like, no pressure." But there is a bar. There is a bar that I set for myself, and that bar is always going to look higher to me than how it looks to my loved ones and to you. But I realized that was primarily because when I wake up, as I live my life and go about my day, and then to the time I go to sleep, I'm just always ruminating on how I can get better as a host and really climb up that totem pole, and maybe, just maybe, one day live my dream of being in the NBA or affiliated with the NBA in some way, shape, or form, even if it looks differently than I had anticipated as a young kid. And that's just a reflection of the times, right? Like 10, 15 years ago, that path would look a lot different. But for some reason, I've been crazy enough to believe that the technology, the resources, the creativity, and the knowledge that God has blessed me with, and that I possess, can quite help me literally go from 0 to 100. And that deep knowing is what has kept me going on days when I did not want to get in front of this laptop and this microphone. Now, granted, there is such thing as being a multifaceted human being, right? I'm very well aware of that too. I immediately think of Robin Roberts, who was a hooper before we even saw her as the icon on GMA, right? On a much more versatile level. Look at what Snoop Dogg has done while being a hip hop legend. So I know that hip hop advocacy is not something that I'm dropping. I'm not saying that at all, but I will say that it is taking a back seat. So while I'll always have Hip to the Games in my back pocket, I wanted to enter this new year with a fresh start and really just lock in on my target, revive my consistency, and shoot my shot like I've never shot before with an NBA centric show. Introducing the Mid Post. New show, same me. Delivering raw, pure NBA analysis, isolation style. This is where you'll primarily find me from here on out. I had to take my place amongst the mass amount of NBA platforms out there and use the basketball term that I resonate with the most. You know me, Team Back, Kobe, Melo, and countless others made a lot of money from the mid post. They made a lot of money off this spot on the floor. The isolation play connects with me being a solo host, right? And as somebody who always just cared more about the game, always just cared more about the purity of the game, the purity of what we watch on the court, and always cared about the eye test more than the analytics. I just thought it was a perfect fit creatively where I'm at, as much as it fits morally for me, right? And I mean, come on, man, look at the logo, man. Shout out to Devon for once again delivering on the logo. Look at me, man. I got a silhouette now. Like, that's crazy. Mike had the jump man, Shaq had the dunk man, Vince Carter, Ray Allen, Rasheed Wallace. They all had theirs, and I think a lot more, there are other guys that had theirs, but the way I just look at that and smile, it's like, don't wait for an opportunity when you can build it yourself. And funny enough, like, I feel like that's been the theme of my journey so far as a podcast host, as a digital content creator. Like, I'm not I'm not going to wait for nobody to hand me an opportunity, or I can't always wait for somebody to give it to me. Like, at this point, God has given me ideas. God has given me drive and passion and creativity. I'm going to take it. When God gives you an idea, don't hesitate. And I look at that when I see this logo, and I think Devon did it himself. Twin went crazy. He went crazy with this. So I'm very fortunate. But yes, this is my new show moving forward. The Hip to the Games platforms will still be up. Like I said, the podcast, anything YouTube related, Substack, socials, the whole nine. Everything is going to stay up. And who knows, if I really get the itch again and get back on that hip hop side and talk about things, I will not hesitate to do so. I will not hesitate to do so. At this point, I'm everywhere. I'm on all these platforms, so you'll know where to find you'll know where to find me when that happens. But I've come to the conclusion that it is about that time that I put all my energy into the lane that I've been obsessed with since day one, and I think it's kind of shown in the balance of my content. So that's really what I'm trying to do moving forward. Of course, in regards to the mid post, new episodes will drop every Tuesday on all podcast platforms, and video episodes will still be on the 19 Media Group YouTube channel. So again, as you've noticed, the last few episodes of Hip to the Games have been preparing for this. And even if you look at my solo channel with Mid Range Monday, like, all of this has been in preparation for me to make this pivot and get back to doing weekly content and all of that. The rhythm and the energy of the show will relatively be the same as what you're used to hearing from me. However, my primary goal is for it to be a lot more intentional, consistent, and up to date with what's going on in the NBA world. The issue that I ran into with having a bi-weekly schedule from 2022 to the present was that I was often late to the party, quote unquote, when discussing relevant NBA topics. And sometimes the NBA moves so fast that if I drop on Friday talking about something that happened on Monday, there was a high chance that I missed the details that ensued during that time in between, right? So, for example, if someone got traded when I recorded on Monday, I might have a reaction to the trade, but by the time the episode drops on Friday, that person might have played 1, 2, even 3 games with their new team already. So while you're listening to my hypotheticals, the next podcaster is evaluating what's actually happening in real time. So I'm trying to be more consistent, more intentional, sharper. If I want to grow the way that I say I'd like to grow, I got to get back to that consistency that I had in 2021. Again, some of you might not even remember that, but that was how I started, and I want to get back to that and then some. And I got to be on my homework even more. I got to speak better. I got to analyze better. My pacing's got to be better. End-to-end production from top to bottom as a whole just has to be sharper. So that's my announcement. You know me by now. I just got that inner dog, that inner drive, and it's been showing up a lot lately. And like I said, this transition I feel like is where I'm at. It lines up where I'm at mentally right now. Man, it's been a really dope 5 years, and the connections I've made with you and so many people from just podcasting, from just picking up this microphone during the last semester of my college career has went beyond anything that I could have imagined back in 2021. And I'm just so incredibly grateful. Like, anybody that hit play, listened to a whole episode, commented, liked a post, showed love, anybody that was opposite of me, right, in any kind of episode, whether it was an interview style episode or, we were showing love to NBA players, talking about hip hop, the artists that I've had on here, like, man, it has been amazing. Like, even having merch, sponsorships, like, this is all stuff that I knew that I wanted, but like, I just didn't know how I was going to get there. And I'm living proof of what they say. Take the first step. Take the first step. Because my first step led to some things that I didn't even imagine at first. I always say there was a point in time I didn't know how I was going to get past 3 episodes. Like, that was like all the creativity I had at the time. I was like, man, how am I going to keep this going? And once you take that first step, it's like Michael Jackson's Billie Jean video, man. Then that is going to light the path, man. It's going to light the path, just like the Bible says, right? He's the lamp at our feet and light on our path. So I'm living proof of that. But again, in the midst of me saying all this, I really want you to know this isn't goodbye to Hip to the Games. It's simply see you later. It is simply see you later. And so in preparation for this transition, I really encourage you to follow at MidPostPod on Instagram and Twitter/X. If you are on TikTok, I have actually changed my handle to the same as my personal pages, Desmond Powell _, because I've posted so much from the YouTube channel, the podcast, and other things. I just felt it was best for me to turn that page into like just me, kind of a general hub for what I do. But yes, everything in regards to the new show is going to be at MidPostPod. So make sure you follow the socials to stay in the loop, because I'm obviously going to be much more active on that page moving forward. And even as you watch this video, make sure you are subscribed to the 19 Media Group YouTube channel if you aren't already. So when mid-post episodes go up, you will see those instantly, and we can make this a smooth transition. The first episode will drop next Tuesday. All right, like I said, this week is going to be a lot of transitional things that I got to do. But next Tuesday, February 3rd, that's going to be the first episode of the Mid-Post. So if you could subscribe and follow the socials for me, I would greatly appreciate it, as it helps me make this transition a lot smoother. And I think that's everything. Without me rambling and going on a tangent, I think that's everything. You know me, the marathon continues, and I'm excited for this pivot. It does feel crazy, I ain't gonna lie, but I am excited for this pivot. That's exactly what it is. It's merely a pivot. And I'm hopeful and optimistic that it will feature my best work yet. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you for listening to H2DG. All for the love of the best combo there is. And don't get it twisted. We still and gonna always be hip to the games. Peace out and God bless. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Hip to the Games, and if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit up the socials at Desmond Powell _ and at Hip to the Games on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok so you don't miss out on the fun. And please follow or subscribe to the show and leave a review on the podcast platform you're on right now, as your support is greatly appreciated.